This is Ray Shackleford.
And I'm Eddie Young Obote.
And welcome to
Fresh Perspective.
This is our brand new show where we talk about the diaspora and bringing together the African community, the African American community, to discuss politics, civic participation in the community, and again, reinforcing coming together as one. And I want to make sure that we hear from our viewers. We want to know what topics you want to discuss. If there's any guests you want to see, we need to hear from you to make sure that we're getting everyone together to come together as one.
Exactly. So today we have a special guest, Mr. Sledge. And I'm really excited to hear more about your story, what you're doing in the community, things like that. So if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, my name is Sledge Leonidas. I am from Haiti. I was born there, came to the States at a very young age, and passed in Brooklyn some kind of way.
Uh-oh.
That's the original
Brooklyn
passage
in the building, y'all.
All the immigrants that come through. But Brooklyn was a little bit difficult for my family and I. So we moved down south, Atlanta. Okay. Atlanta, Georgia, ended up in Decatur. Shout out to Decatur.
Come on, Decatur.
And, so went to school out there, went to Morehouse, and kind of landed here in Houston. Just because the economy and it's a very diverse place, but that's just the backdrop. My origin. But currently, I am the chairman of Houston Caribbean Professional Association. Okay. Also, the vice chairman of Houston Haitians United, and both of those organizations, of course, focus groups within the Caribbean diaspora. And we're here to uplift each other, expose our culture, and just build up the power of the network so we can influence our communities.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so, Sledge, you and I share a bond being Morehouse brothers.
That's right.
In addition to being brothers within the diaspora. And so, part of what we want to talk about is the challenges we face in our respective communities. And so, we've talked about things that are issues within the African community, within the African American community. What would you identify as those top 2 to 3 issues within the Caribbean community for those individuals who are immigrants coming from those islands, transitioning into America or trying to get established within America? What are some of those challenges they've been facing and continue to face today?
Well, first and foremost, I feel financial literacy is one of the biggest issues that we face within our community. When our families first come here, what are they trying to do? They're just trying to make it. Some of them probably came with their education, but then their education didn't sum up or value to much of anything, so they had to get recertified or go back to school, to just get acclimated with the American society. So they joined the workforce right away. But, it's not like back home to where, a dollar can stretch. Here in America, a dollar nowadays, it's not going to get you too far. So we find a lot of families working 2 or 3 jobs just to make sure that their kids get somewhere. But within that struggle, you lose investments, you lose retirement, and then to be able to buy a home and your credit, and because if you're coming to a country, I know a lot of of our peers face this. Coming to a country, your parents don't have much, so you go out and you go get a credit card because they're giving it to you in college, right? And they give you a little credit limit, and then so you go and spend it, and you don't really have a clear-cut plan to pay that back. So now your credit is shot. Right. Or your parents might have really needed that line of credit, right. And because I'm the oldest out of 9 kids, so I've had to deal and face things that probably most people hadn't. I had to, give up a lot of things. And so whenever I was working, started working when I was 15 years old, all my money went to my parents, so I remember one time I had, when I was at Morehouse, I was a freshman, and a credit card came through, and they gave me I think a $500 limit at the time. I didn't have any credit or anything like that. So all my money was going to my parents anyways,
Right.
to help out with my siblings. And so I was like, I'm going to get them kicks. And I'm going to,
Okay, grown here.
yeah. And of course, I bought 2 books, and then the rest I kind of, just did what I wanted to do with it. But I didn't really have I had work study at the time. I was working with Dr. Massey there. I don't know if you, no,
I was there.
You were there. Oh, okay. So I was the student aide from there, but we weren't really making much, so I didn't have a clear-cut plan on how to pay that back.
Right.
But all I had in my mind is how I was gonna help my family. So with that being said, that my situation is not an isolated one.
Right, yeah.
So that's why I said that financial literacy aspect, as we're getting acclimated to this American society, to make sure that we still align ourselves proper. Now, we as Caribbeans, we come here, our parents push education a lot. So we understand that aspect, that we got to go and get educated and to be productive citizens in society. But I didn't have, my parents didn't sit me down and say, all right, this is what a 401k is. This is the average credit score you need to maintain. This is how you pay your bills on time so you don't pay interest on it. This is how you can pay your car off faster. This is how you can pay your house off faster. So that financial literacy aspect is something that I feel like we as a community could do better, right? Another issue that I feel we as Caribbeans face is because if I'm from Haiti and let's say you're from Jamaica and let's say you're from Trinidad, but the society, the way that it is, they group us still as Caribbeans, right? But we still have our individual identities,
right?
Our individual paths and cultures that we have. Though the cultures are similar, but there's still stark differences in them, especially Haitians. So with that being said, how do you unify that really?
Right.
Because people have a tendency of grouping us together automatically. Are you from Caribbean?
Right.
Yes, I'm from Caribbean, but I'm Haitian.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't really, I can relate to Jamaican, but I'm not Jamaican. Some of the stuff that they say sometimes I don't understand, but you might assume that I do because I'm from the Caribbean.
Right.
So if there's so many different islands, I think there's 36, 37. Don't quote me. I think it's something around there. How do you get that one leadership? How do you get those people to move together as a unit? Right? Because that could be a very strong voting bloc. Yeah. It is a very strong voting bloc.
It is.
Right? So that's why organizations like, ACPA, we're trying to bridge that gap so that we can move in sync with one another. So I think that those are 2 main things that we face here in this American society. And the other one, if I can speak on it, would be our generations that are coming up, though they are being raised here within the American culture, but we're losing part of ourselves. It's getting diluted.
Part of your own culture.
Part of our own culture is missing out of that. So for instance, my children, they don't speak Creole, or French, and I speak it fluently. How does that happen? Well, it's not being, taught to them, and they're going to school, they're friends and stuff like that. So you lose part of that identity, and it takes away from the economy back home as well in the long run.
Yeah.
Because my children, though I might have land back home or something like that, my grandfather did, but as they're coming up, what ties do they have to really still connect to that economy back home to help uplift that? So I think those are three things that are going on within the Caribbean community that I feel like we should focus on and address.
So I'm gonna touch on the last point you said, because I kind of feel like we have some shared or similarities in terms of stories with that. For you, you were born there. For me, I wasn't born in Nigeria, but I do feel the same way in regards to, I guess you would call that preserving the culture in a sense, right? Where for me, I don't know my language fully. I'm not as fluent, but I know a couple of words here and there. I can, get some commands going, things like that. But I can't. So I'm from Akwa in Nigeria, and the language we speak is Efik. The dialect I speak is Adang. That's a little, little breakdown. But I'll say this: for me, I don't know it well enough to teach like my future offspring, and so for me, that's a little scary because if you have people who are like me, first gens that are not as fluent in speaking the language, now they may know some cultural things, but you still have to have that reference point, which ends up being your parents, and your parents are going to end up, leaving us at some point in time with that wealth of knowledge. How do you try to like preserve that culture? So for you mentioned it, like what are some things that you guys are doing? What are you doing personally to say, okay, my children may not know it now, but this is what I'm trying to instill in them for the future to tap back into that economy back home, or just even when they're growing up, they have a sense of like pride and culture and passing that out down to their own generations.
Great question. Within the organization, Houston Haitians United, we sat down with one another and we said, hey, these kids, because we had a Sunday fun day in the park about 2 weeks ago, and we see the kids running around, but again, they don't know the language. They're not really connected to back home. They recognize the flag once they see it, but that's about it. Hey, my parents were Haitian. and it stops there. So we decided that as a community, that's why it's so beautiful to have that unity and the power of organizations. It's so very impactful and meaningful for any community, really. So we decided that we were going to like have a division, and we're gonna call them like Tizoiseau, which in English it means little birds. So in order for the little birds to fly, they need their elders to sit down with them and have discussions, have different etiquette. Because every society or every culture has their own unique etiquettes. So what is proper way of eating here in America may not be a proper way of eating for you back home in Nigeria. I remember the first time an American person seen me eating with my hands, they were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're so savage.
You took the word out of my head.
You're so primitive, but not knowing that, that may be proper etiquette for us, depending on what it is that we're eating, So it's little things like that we feel like we should teach the children, and also to have programs back home. You know how like you had like pen pals in high school from overseas and countries. Well, you have a pen pal with a orphanage, back home, and give them that tie. So those are small little things that we can do to still keep them connected and rooted. And of course, the biggest language of culture is music, right? So playing that in the house and passing it on, teaching them little things like prayers and stuff like that. So maybe they're not fully blown within or immersed within the culture, but they still have a passion and a desire to stay connected with it as they grow. Because sometimes I remember when I was, growing up, though I knew that I was Haitian, but I was trying to figure out America.
Right.
My kids aren't trying to figure out America.
They're already American.
They're already American. So for me, I wanted to, I put everything Haitian aside for a second, just so that I could understand my surroundings. And then, my mother, what she used to say is that you have to assimilate to them the best way that you can. Articulate your words properly so that you're not discriminated against when you're seeking a job or in a professional setting. Because you want to not take away any advantage that you may have. Don't give yourself any disadvantages. Sometimes your accent can be a disadvantage to you. You can be discriminated against towards that. My kids don't have that problem.
Right.
My kids don't have that problem. So they don't have to figure out the American society. So now they have to figure out their Haitian society, their Haitian culture. So it kind of happened reverse.
No, and you've given us some great insight as it relates to your children and that generation being able to hold on to their identity. We will look at that more as soon as we get back from this break. Welcome back to Fresh Perspective here on Vineyard TV 15.8. And we're talking to Sledge Leonidas today. And going into the break, Sledge, you were talking about some things in terms of what you try to impart to your children and the youth and that next generation to make sure that they have that identity as it relates to the Haitian community. And when you were talking about Creole, me and my family on my mother's side having that background from Louisiana, my grandmother, she spoke Creole. She spoke French. And so I'm just curious.
That's beautiful.
What does that look like? What's the differences from that as it relates to the Haitian Creole? Because I'm sure it's not exactly the same. I'm sure there's some connections as well. But what's your take on that?
I'm glad you brought that up. I always say that, the African Americans that are in Louisiana, call you guys the real Haitian Americans.
I like that.
Okay.
Ray, you a Haitian American.
You're a Haitian American.
You guys make me go back and research some things.
Okay. So, Haiti gained its independence in 1804. All right. First black independent nation, post the colonization and slavery and stuff like that, right? Because we were free prior to that. So, United States had the Louisiana Purchase, and Haiti was very instrumental with that. So now the freed slaves from Haiti, they now had a stark difference between the mulattoes and or they call themselves the elites, and so the blacks, the Negroes, the darker skinned Haitians, they pretty much controlled the island, Toussaint Louverture, and Christophe Lanouille, and Dessalines, and those giants in the Haitian history. So there was like a stark division between the lighter skin of the mulattoes that were mixed versus the darker skin. So a lot of the mulattoes, they picked up and went to Louisiana once that was done. So they took that culture, they took the Haitian, the cuisine, the language and stuff like that, and the religion. And so now you see that was like the birth of that mixing of that Creole or that Cajun. And I don't even really know why the Cajuns and the Creole like to separate themselves. Again, it's just another form of separation. And I know there's some type of historical thing that happened there. Now, I'm not versed on the historical aspect of what happened in Louisiana to where they want to separate themselves. But yeah, so the Creole you'll find in very remote areas within the woods and stuff like that of Louisiana, where the Creole is actually very similar to the Creole that's spoken in Haiti. Though there is a difference in it because, of course, you guys been influenced by the American English, so, but nevertheless, there's still a base to that. And of course, the base is French, so, and the language of Creole only came up as a way to confuse the slave masters so that we can communicate with ourselves. So Creole is actually a language of freedom, so when we were getting together and we said, hey, we need to come up with a plan, and we don't want them to know about it because we weren't allowed to read and write. Right. So came up with that language of Haiti, the language of Creole, which was very impactful in that revolution. So now that impact now came to New Orleans and Louisiana, and you'll see different remnants of the Haitian culture there as well. So that's why I said, the people, the blacks, in Louisiana, you guys are the real Haitian Americans.
So you telling me I got Haitian somewhere?
If you trace it back,
okay.
I could almost bet $1 million on you.
Because it sounds like you said gumbo comes from Haiti too, because I know you said the cuisine.
The Haitian cuisine and the Louisiana Cajun cooking is not that far apart from each other. Like the special on Popeyes on Tuesdays, right? Yeah. So last Tuesday, I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna lie. I'm here in America now, so you gotta do as Americans do, right? Okay. Right? So I go to Popeyes and the line is packed, but there's this rice and beans that you familiar with the rice and beans from Popeyes? Now that's very similar to a dish that we have in Haiti called jus sauce pois is beans. Okay. So bean sauce. So same thing that's kind of on the menu at there. So it's like you can see the influences, and people don't really make the connection. And we love spicy foods. Our foods are very spicy and seasoned and stuff. But I know within, the Louisiana culture, you guys have the gumbo. In Haiti, we have something called bouillon. Bouillon is a mix of all those vegetables, and you put whatever meats in there that you like, and it's very hearty and very healthy. So it's like, every I guess culture or subculture remixes it to their own, but there's always some type of root, and we tie all that back to Africa as well.
Absolutely. Nigeria, we have many kinds of soups.
Yeah.
We all
soup. You
that
got spinach soup. You got Eddie Concombre soup. You have different meats and vegetables.
Designer soup.
You had some designer soup
the
other day.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
It was good, right?
I never had it before.
But yeah, I think food is also one of those things that connects all of our cultures together.
Absolutely.
Without us not even really knowing it until you taste it. You're like, oh, this tastes like I was looking the other day, like in our culture, we eat moi moi. Mm-hmm. And moi moi is like bean based. When I was trying to explain it to Ray, I was like, think of it as like a tamale.
Yeah.
It's like literally the same thing, but we call it differently in our Nigerian dish. It's the same kind of texture as well. Yeah. But you would never really, understand that until
the foods are very similar. I would say outside of your traditional African American cuisine, which you guys call soul food. Right. Which I like. I enjoy soul food as well.
It's not healthy.
It's definitely not.
But it tastes
good.
It tastes good. Yeah, man. So I would say in Haiti, we are probably the most African of nations outside of the continent of Africa, only because we didn't remain under colonization. We didn't get that influence as long as the other. Right. So we held on to the roots more and the religion more and stuff like that. So bringing that back to foods. There's the Haitian cuisine, though there's a French influence in it, but we're eating the same things, but just prepared differently and named differently.
Yeah.
And probably used it. We use a lot of natural herbs and seasonings back home. So, yeah.
So I kind of want to switch gears. I have a question. You talked about how you came to Brooklyn and it was kind of hard.
Yeah.
You try to assimilate into the American culture. You kind of push the Haitian one to the side. You know that one.
Right.
Now that you're, full-grown adult with children, everything like that, do you consider yourself as an African American, or do you see yourself as more of just like I'm an immigrant that I don't know how to. That just came here and identifies African American because of the classification.
Correct.
You talked about how you had to learn the culture and have to talk the talk, walk the walk, but you still have to hang on to your Haitian roots. So now in this present time, do you see yourself as like a Haitian American? Is that also considered African American to you? Black? What is that for you?
Well, let me just give you some backdrop and then I'll answer your question directly. So when I first came here, coming from a tropical island, and it's snowing in Brooklyn. And so, first of all, it's like, why?
Why?
Why? What is this white stuff? Can you eat it? What is this? Because like we had this stuff called like shaved ice.
Yeah.
And then you could put like syrup with different flavors on it. So I'm like, this stuff grows on the ground. Like, so it was such a change, such a culture shock for me with environment and language and all that stuff. And then coming to America during that time, that's when Haitians, they were saying that we, had AIDS and we would bring AIDS to the country. And we used to get beat up in school and teased for being Haitian and stuff like that. So, and that's another reason why as a child, sometimes you wanted to kind of separate yourself from that so you don't face those hardships. But if you go through all of that struggle, right, there's no way that now as an older man that I'm going to claim anything but being Haitian because I know what that means to be Haitian.
Right.
I had to, fight because I was Haitian. I got, discriminated against because I was from Haiti. So I don't really, though I've mastered the English language, and I'm doing well within this society, but, I'm Haitian. Okay. And so I've never classified myself as even a Haitian American. Okay. I have American citizenship, and I appreciate the opportunities that this country affords me and my family. And I contribute to the society, paying taxes, organizations, pay back student loans, bills, mortgage, So I've contributed and still continue to contribute to this American society, so on paper, I'm American, right? Because that's what the document says.
Right.
But actually, even before the document said it, I was a green card holder for many years. I didn't see the reason for me to become a citizen of the United States. I didn't care to be part of the political process per se because I never felt like it represented me. I never had a voice in it because whatever issues you were looking at that were that were unique to the African American community, that same African American community ostracized me.
Gotcha.
So our struggles weren't even the same because you didn't even want to accept me.
Right.
So why now, as an established career person, should I accept you back? But what I'm saying is that, of course, I am proud to be in this country
Yeah.
because of the opportunities that it's afforded me and my family. And my kids are American, but if you ask my kids, what are they? They'll tell you that they're Haitian, actually.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But they understand that they're born in America.
Okay.
So
and I guess, because as we close, where can people find more information on you, the organization that you are in leadership in, and how can they support those entities?
all right. So with Houston Haitians United, we are on Facebook, HHU 1804, and on Instagram. Of course, there's a website, www.Houston Haitians United, that you can go check that out. We have events for the community all the time, cultural things, dance-a-thon, because as Caribbeans, we party with the best of them. You know, but one thing that we were doing with HCPA, which is Houston Caribbean Professional Association, is that outside of the partying and the socialization, we are contributors to the society. We are a unique voting bloc. We can network with each other to advance. We can fraternize with one another outside of that social setting. So you can find ACPA on Facebook and the social media platforms as well. We have a social mixer, a professional mixer monthly that I would like to partner with you all on that as well.
Sure.
And you know, bring more awareness to the culture and for us to just build a stronger bond and network amongst each other. There doesn't have to be so much of a separation.
Right.
Everybody is like moving and striving towards the same thing.
Exactly.
In essence, it'll be a beautiful thing to just finally
Come together,
move it forward together. You know, so we host the social professional mixers at the Fox Hollow every last Thursday of the month. This month we're going to be focused on health. Healthy is the new sexy.
Hey.
You know what I mean? So get your sexy on, because hey,
Okay.
you know, we still pretty fly. You know, I'm getting a little older, but you know what I mean? I still got it. You know what I mean? I ain't losing it.
All right, Mr. Slick.
So yeah, so that's about me. Host a podcast on YouTube on every Tuesday, and we talk about issues like this.
Okay.
Go by the name of Neglakai on social media. Neglakay. Neglakay just means man from home. You know what I mean? So that's the stage name, I suppose.
Definitely, man.
Okay.
So, Sledge, we want to thank you, man. We definitely have to bring you back because we did not get to dive in.
Oh, man.
So
I felt like we was just getting started.
Yeah.
But before we leave, though, can you say something in your native language?
Yeah, absolutely. Réellement apprécié nous parce que nous menons là, tout haïtien mieux qui l'autre bois, nous là pour nous travailler ensemble. So, les nous bail ça sont belle bail qu'a fait là et puis n'a fait pour nous pour communauté. So.
Yo, he said like a whole essay of words.
I was saying this is such a beautiful thing, being able to expose ourselves and our culture on such platforms. And thank you for bringing us here to give that opportunity so that we can have that representation.
Absolutely,
Nice.
man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate it.
I'm Ray Shackleford.
And I'm Edie Young Ovote.
And this has been
Fresh Perspective.